All right. So I just put a document into chat. And I assigned a scenario to each person on here. And what I was thinking could be fun is that we all just kind of work on taking a stab at designing a HVAC system or a heat pump system for The Simpsons. So I did include a little bit of the floor plan on the first page, and I put in some project details on the top, and then I kind of assigned each and every one of you a existing situation for the home, as well as the heating load and cooling load. And I'd like to hear a little bit about what you each come up with. And as you are working through this, I will be I will be right here to be answering questions in real time.
Okay, I have a first question. So
Okay.
the where it says the heating load, it says like 20 kBTU per over 15 kBTU. Like I thought, isn't that per square foot or what is? I would have thought it would be like 20 per square foot or something. So
Yeah, so I'm putting it in with what the actual heating load is, not based off of the square footage. So
okay.
Sue,
Oh,
for
okay.
yours on the first floor, the heating load is 20,000 BTUs. On the second floor, it's 12,000 BTUs,
Okay.
and then the cooling load for the first floor is
Cooling.
15, and
Okay.
second floor is
Okay.
10.
All right. 20,000. Okay. Perfect.
So the second, well, wait a second.
So the second is the cooling load.
Okay, so after the dash is the second is cooling. Got it.
Yep,
So
you
no
got it.
math. Okay.
I wouldn't do that to you. And one thing to know about this, there's no right or wrong answer. It's very open-ended.
So I guess one of my first questions is, well, I mean, I suppose I'm answering through it in real time as I talk it out. I'm like, well, I wonder if it's insulated, but my heating load values would tell me that.
Yeah, so I think with looking at, say, your values versus Joe's values, your Simpsons home seems slightly more buttoned up than Joe's.
Yeah.
Is there a design temperature for the heating and cooling loads?
Oh, why don't we just say 5 degrees?
How about for cooling? What do they normally do? Like 7? What do they do for cooling? Like I'm just like when I'm looking at the performance, I'm trying to figure out like what temperature I should be looking at the performance.
Oh, yeah, so the design temp for cooling, let's just it's probably like 90-ish degrees. I'll see what the actual design temp is in for cooling for Springfield, Massachusetts. Yeah, so the design temp in Springfield, Massachusetts for cooling is 88.3 degrees. And as we do think about the design temperature, it means that 99% of the cooling season is at or below that temperature.
So, Mike, in my scenario, there's already central air. So I'm going to assume I need to, well, my understanding, not like you said, there's lots of right answers here. I should probably stick with an American manufacturer because we have the centrally ducted system. And in my solution, at least solution A, I don't want to abandon that ductwork.
Yeah, I would be curious to hear how you're going to deal with the fact that the first floor is still hot in the summertime with the AC running. So no right or wrong answers, but
well, I'm assuming it's an original central AC system that's never been fully recharged. So I'm hopeful that adding is 2 zones instead of 1 and a fully charged newer system will support that. But we'll see as I get further down this path.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the NEAP database and I'm wondering if you could remind me. So when I look at the performance specs with like the min, the rated and the max, like what is most like what's the most reliable column in that? Like, because they have it, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so the rated, I don't think is all that useful because that's just how the equipment is performing at a specific hertz of electricity applied to it in a specific testing environment. So normally when I'm looking at equipment, I'm looking at the min performance and the max performance and thinking that it's likely going to be running more efficiently at the min. So normally when I'm looking at like coefficient of performance, I'm looking at the min at 47 and also the min at 47 also would indicate whether or not the equipment's better at how much the equipment's going to be cycling on and off. The other number that I think is very useful for the NEAP database is the max at 5. Because that's like the total heating capacity or the total heating output that you can always see in the NEAP database. And I guess one additional thing that could just be fun to also think about is how much would you charge The Simpsons for your HVAC project? Because it would be good to just think about pricing and rebates and all of that as well. And when anyone thinks that they're like good to go, I'm happy to start talking about your project while other people may still be working.
I feel like I'm just like lost in the NEAP database. Like, is there a way to search it more efficiently for like the min rating, or like, I don't know, I'm kind of curious about, like, I'm looking for I'm this first scenario with the centrally ducted system for AC and heat. I think what I want to do is provide, but there's like one room that's colder upstairs. And I wanted to provide, actually, it doesn't even say that. For some reason, I thought that. Oh yeah, because it's in the main thing. Because on the first floor, the rumpus room.
Yeah,
It's always cold. So I wanted to provide like an additional like mini split there. I was thinking, and I'm just like struggling to like use the database to figure it out.
Yeah, so I think with if you're, let's say, this far along and you're dealing with, say, like Bosch equipment or Mitsubishi equipment. So I think what I would be, let me do a screen share and I'll just share everything so I don't get too flipped around here. Okay. So over here, it says like use the NEAP database, MyLink Drive to find equipment options. If pursuing dual fuel, look at this Bosch, this kind of this Bosch product brochure. Oop. Hold on. Why didn't that?
I got the PDF.
Okay. So over here, if you're on it, it will eventually have like all of the different model numbers. And say if you're looking at the model numbers, you'll see some that have like a 36 in them, and then you'll see some that have, say, a 60 in them. And that would give you an idea of what the capacity is of the equipment. So say if I'm seeing 24, I'm thinking a 24,000 BTU. 36, 36,000, 60, 60,000 BTUs. So what I'd recommend doing kind of after you've found kind of this potential sizing that you're looking for, then I would kind of bring those over into the NEAP database and see how it's actually going to be performing. As far as with the ductless equipment, if you're wanting to add a ductless piece of equipment, then what I would encourage you to do would be to on the document, there's a link over to my link drive. And with that, you should be able to find the size of, you should be able to find some ductless units from Mitsubishi. And then you can check the sizing of those on the NEAT database.
Mike, it's Joe. Is there such a thing as bifurcating the ducting at the furnace such that you can go to the first floor with one furnace top, single ducted unit, and to the second floor with a second ducted unit?
Yeah, so the that is a reality. There is a question about the return. So say if you're putting in a central heat pump down in the basement for the first floor, and then also for the second floor, there is a big question of where the return is going to be located. Because you wouldn't want, say, zone number 1 to be the first floor and zone number 2 to be the second floor, but having a central return on the first floor. So typically, if you're kind of putting in a second air handling unit, I would recommend putting that up into the attic and having a central return on the same floor that the supplies are. So you'd kind of need to abandon the vents in the floor and move registers into the ceiling. Or alternatively, you could be using a US manufacturer's equipment, and then you could be having the first floor and the second floor all from one air handling unit, but have it on 2 separate zones.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask, like, I feel like it's a little bit too into the weeds for us to be doing like first instance, like finding pieces of equipment when there are a lot of options, which I think, like, I'm not saying it's not a useful exercise, but I was wondering if we could just for a minute go back and say, like, a homeowner comes to us as these volunteer coaches. This is their house. Like, we're not looking up a specific piece of equipment. How are we how would you talk to them about kind of what their options are? Because I was sort of seeing, like, I wasn't going to be looking up specific pieces of equipment. I would wait until they got proposals, and then I'd be able to help them figure out kind of what the difference, or have them do the quote comparison and kind of walk them through that. But how do you talk to them when they're like, all right, here's my house. What do you think? What would be good, like to help them talk to installers about what they're looking for?
Right. So I think this does go back a little bit to the concept of thinking about pricing as well. So I guess if I'm looking at this Simpsons home and I'm looking at the floor plan, I'm thinking, like, one, it has everything to do with like what is existing as far as what the recommendations could be. And totally understand you're not supposed to be recommending equipment. I just want to give you the opportunity to play around with the NEAT database and make sure that
no, I'm not saying
with it.
It's not valuable. I totally do, but I'm trying to get to that first part, like that, because I'm going to have that conversation with someone like tomorrow, and they're going to be like, here's my house, and so there's like a pre thing that I kind of want to roadmap for talking to them about, like, okay, well, since you have ducts, your options are this.
Yeah, so why don't I so pursue your situation is there's the
If I will go for the knee split,
the audio just got choppy, and I don't know if it's on my end. Was everyone else able to hear Sue?
It was choppy for me too.
Okay, it looks like she's slightly frozen.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I turned off my video because my internet was doing something funky.
Okay. So yeah, if you want to repeat kind of your last statement.
Okay, I think what I said was, I just wanted to get a sense of, if I'm sitting down with a homeowner tomorrow and I'm saying, well, all right, here's your setup, like, how am I talking them through the preliminaries of here are the kind of options that you might have. Here's what, the things you can talk to about an installer, before, you get to the point of, here's a particular type of solution, a piece of equipment, and how much that costs,
Yeah. Yeah, so for your case, I do think that it's always worth just first thinking about, like, do they want to think about ductless equipment? And if they do think about ductless equipment, it's always worth just keeping it in mind, because sometimes with those, it can become kind of the most affordable way to be heating and cooling in terms of project cost and incentives. But
So even if they have ducts, you'd be saying, your options, you have ducts, your options, you still could do ductless, or you could do a ducted system. Is that, so you would kind of talk about both options?
Because Sue, in your case, the home is relatively low-ish load, with like a total heating load of like 32,000 BTUs. So there may be a possibility of like putting in a ductless unit over on this side of the house, and maybe a ductless unit on this side of the house, with like two 12,000 BTU units. And depending on like the upstairs, where it only has a heat load of 12,000 BTUs, there could be kind of an option of, say, like, one, reusing the air handler up in the attic space for your particular house, because one ductless unit definitely wouldn't, you can't stick it in the bathroom, wouldn't have anywhere close to, say, sufficient coverage. So in your case, there could be that for the downstairs, it is two ductless pieces of equipment. For the upstairs is a ducted piece of equipment. But it's always just worth first thinking about, like, can ductless work? And with looking at this, say if like Homer and Marge were empty nesters, then it's like, once again, a ductless piece of equipment could potentially even work for upstairs. I would say all of the bedrooms up there, like, ducted is really the only possible way to be getting by, I think, on the second floor. The other thing that with your particular home is you do have a hydro air system. So there is a question of how much they're wanting to, what is the age of the boiler? How do they feel about the boiler? And that would inform whether or not the air handling units are going to become, say, like from an Asian manufacturer or from a US manufacturer. Because if the boiler's 30 years old, then it may not make sense to, say, maintain the hydro air setup. Say if the boiler is 5 years old, they just spent $10,000 putting in a new boiler, they're probably not ready to, say, abandon that piece of mechanical equipment. So it really is kind of like all very situational based off of the existing home, the zones, as far as what type of what these recommendations could be looking like.
Okay, so but you're assuming like they're coming to you because they're thinking of changing something. And so you can ask them about that sort of a preliminary, like, do they actually want to get off of this boiler, or is it, because it's nearing the end of its life, or is it something that they're thinking they might maintain? And then to say to them, given that you have duct work, you have kind of options to go in a ducted direction, or you still could do ductless on the main floor, because you could probably cover all of that area, and that could end up being a cheaper option than going for a totally ducted system.
Yeah.
So it might be something you want to look into with your installer. I'm just trying to like I'm picturing like talking to the homeowner. Like, what am I saying to them?
Yeah. So like normally whenever I'm seeing a new ducted system, it's coming in right around like it's $15,000 to $20,000 typically when I'm seeing a new ducted system. So I think for your case, for this particular home, it could get kind of say if you just go in there and it's like, all right, let's put a ducted system down in the basement and a ducted system up in the attic, because to replace both of the hydro air handlers that are already existing, it's like this very well could eventually become a $40,000 project. So I do think part of the initial
Okay.
consultation is
Yeah.
to just try to make sure that like you're not recommending things that are going to be like way outside of, say, someone's
Okay.
budget.
Okay. Uh-huh. All right. That's helpful.
And yeah. But it also, you know, it does depend a lot on like the homeowners and their goals for the project. So if the Simpsons became, you know, wild, you know, like environmentalists and are ready to drop fossil fuels, then it's like, all right, you know, this project definitely is going to cost $40,000. But if they're kind of like more open to just like displacing a good portion of their fossil fuels, like the project's going to look very, very much different.
Okay. All right. I'm going to have to get off for a few minutes, so I'll listen until I go. But
Okay.
thank you for covering that with me. I'll listen to the recording too. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mike, I attended the show on Tuesday and chatted up one of the exhibitors who just moved to Melrose and is renovating a house and needs advice. So I made the connection between this person, Leslie, and Susan, and they're corresponding. So I was just going to see if that conversation tomorrow happens to be with this Leslie.
With the when you said that you attended Nessie?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And you met, what was the person's name?
Leslie, she was an exhibitor for an investment firm, a green investment firm, but I chatted her up enough to make the Melrose connection and the sustainability coaching connection.
Oh, great.
You weren't in the booth because you were presenting.
The abode booth?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a busy conference.
I'm sure.
But yeah. Was this your first Building Energy Boston conference, Joe?
Yes.
What was the best or the most interesting session that you had attended?
A couple of things. One, it was very oriented toward commercial rather than residential.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
Oh, that's so interesting.
also brand new things that are coming to market, not yet here in this market, like the European triple pane windows. The Mitsubishi guy kind of teased that new things are coming, but didn't have, you know, details offered to present to us. But I said, you know, we're product or manufacturer agnostic.
Yeah.
And the aftermarket, now there's a emitter cleaning service company that'll come out and clean your heat pump head ends.
Yeah.
A lot of finance companies are jumping on this. So it was kind of an interesting pre-market and aftermarket focus.
Yeah.
I find
Yeah.
it so interesting that he says it's predominantly commercial focused, because last time I went to Building Energy was 10 years ago, and it was so residentially focused, it wasn't pertinent to me in my career, because my whole career has been C&I.
One of the realizations that I had with this year's conference is that, like, in Massachusetts, at least, that like detached single family homes, there's so little of them happening, and code is already so stringent that like a lot of the attention is kind of like moving over to, you know, passive house multi-families for like the design build community, where it's getting the most attention. But yeah, the other kind of like thing with this year's conference is that like on the day 2 of it, it was like that like doing deep energy retrofits is not practical for the vast majority of the households. So it's like, what is the buttoning up that is good enough to then electrify? But my overarching question, it's like, well, I did everything that was practical for my own home. I adopted heat pumps, but then I still had a $700 electric bill in January of this year. And it's like, how is this going to become doable or sustainable? I know that like there's potentially like World War III breaking out, that there's like other factors in the electrical commodity marketplace, but there is just like we need to do something more than just be like insulate the house as much as possible and electrify, because it can become pretty expensive compared to what some other people had been paying in the past. So yeah, it's always good. It's not like you walk out of Nessian thinking that there's like everything's right or everything's wrong. It's supposed to spark ideas and get people to be thinking curiously and creatively. But it was a good conference, I thought.
I was at a conference too, but I was at an electric vehicle charging conference in Las Vegas.
Oh.
Yeah.
I assume that this is a nice time to be in Las Vegas, weather-wise.
It was cold and rainy, and I actually
Oh.
caught my kid's stomach bug the day that I got there. So I spent about 30 hours in a hotel room bed straight, like just not well. So it may be a good time to be in Vegas, but it was not for me.
Well, I'm sure that just being in a hotel room with no children touching you is a slightly more ideal version of being sick than Mom!
Yeah. Where's my
Living
ginger ale?
Yeah.
Well,
Room
Nicole,
service while sick, that sounds pretty good.
did you want to take a stab at letting me know what you're thinking as far as designs for your home, your Simpsons home?
Yes, so Neep's website is not loading for me at all, so I haven't gotten very far, but I've done kind of, the whole thought experiment here.
Okay.
So I have a steam heat. It's not even loading. And at first I thought, okay, we have the steam heat with centrally ducted AC. Let's keep the centrally ducted part and then just go with a whole house heat pump. And then I was hitting hurdles with the Neep database. So then I thought, okay, well, what's the age of the steam system? Probably not super new. It's a steam system. So it's nearing the end of its useful life in scenario 2 that I'm walking down. And I want to go with a ductless system for the whole shebang, especially to consider that grandpa is always cold and the living room is always too hot in the summer. That's about as far as I got because the Neep database is just spinning. It doesn't matter what browser I use.
Okay.
So if you're gonna do the like mini splits or ductless system upstairs, like where would you put them?
Let me see here. Second floor. I would put a head in every bedroom, either wall mounted or ceiling mounted. in every bedroom.
So 4 upstairs.
Yes.
Okay. And for downstairs, what would you be thinking about?
I'd want Grandpa to have one in the rumpus room because he was uncomfortable with the former system.
Yeah.
I'd tear down the wall between the TV room and kitchen and then have a head that serves both. Or between the TV room and the living room.
TV room and
Yeah, I guess I'd do 3 downstairs. I do one that tries to serve the TV living room together, the kitchen dining room together, and then one for Grandpa.
Okay.
Is there an issue with putting an air handler in an unconditioned attic space?
That's a great question, Joe. So an air handler would always be happier inside of a conditioned attic space. However, the vast majority of American homes have HVAC equipment in unconditioned attic spaces, and the equipment is made to run in unconditioned attic spaces, and the ductwork has never needed to be as sealed as it is today and as insulated as today. And the boxes themselves, the air handler boxes, are pretty much completely airtight as well. So it would be more ideal to have an air handler in a conditioned attic than an unconditioned attic. However, the equipment can be working perfectly fine in both situations. Just you need to account for a little bit higher of a load when the equipment is in an unconditioned attic.
Thank you.
All right. So with Nicole, so what we have is we have 3 pieces of equipment downstairs, 4 pieces of equipment upstairs, and you have a total load of 32,000 BTUs per hour. So let me just do this real quick.
Oh, yeah. Am I able? I need like a VRF system to do it with 7 pieces off the main system, huh?
Yeah, so the biggest, the worry that I'd have for this one is the say for a
Oversizing.
multi-zone, the smallest multi-zone that supports 8 pieces of indoor equipment would be their 48,000 BTU system. And with that one, its min capacity is 27,000 BTUs, and your total heat load is 32,000 BTUs. So there is a really good chance that in heating mode, this equipment's going to be cycling all of the time. The good news with, and not that I'm like highly promoting Mitsubishi's equipment, the good news is on the cooling load, its min capacity is about 1 ton. So I don't have any concerns with the equipment causing humidity issues in the summertime. So in summertime, perfectly fine with the design. In the shoulder seasons and the vast majority of the winter, I do think it would likely be cycling more than we would like it to see.
Yeah.
What's why is it that you are not worried about humidity?
Yeah, because for Nicole's project, the cooling load is 25,000 BTUs per hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 25,000 BTUs per hour. And when I look at the min cooling capacity, I see that it's 12,000. So the min is a good chunk lower than the max, which would inform to me that this heat pump is going to be modulating through the vast majority of the spring and summertime. The tricky thing, let me just highlight this. Let's say for Joe's project, let's say that Joe likes the look of the of a 60. let's say that Joe wants to just put in, say, like a big 5-ton Bosch air handler. I may see that oh no, that's actually good. Joe's cooling capacity, yeah. So, Jillian, let me check yours, 32. Well, what are you thinking on your heating side, Jillian?
Well, I really wanted to use their ducts, since it's centrally ducted and it's
Yep.
ducted from the basement to the whole house.
Yep.
So I didn't want to do dual fuel. I wanted to go all electric for them. And similar to Nicole, make sure we had a small mini split in the rumpus / grandpa room, which I just love the word rumpus, by the way.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just got lost like trying to find the solutions for that. And then I was wondering a lot about if that causes like an issue, like to have a system serving like grandpa's room in 2 ways, because he would still have a duct in there
Yeah.
from the other system. But I was assuming the mini split in his room would have its own thermostat. So I was wondering how that might work and what you think about that idea. What would you
Yeah.
recommend? I want to know.
Yeah, so one thing that we don't know of is where the existing, say, central thermostat is located for the house. But
Yeah,
one
I
thing
thought
that
it would
is-
probably be near the stairs, like off of the living room or something, or dining room. Yeah.
Yeah, so if it's off of the dining room, one of the things that I would just suggest for this project is potentially moving it over to here. And then putting, say, the ductless unit in grandpa's room, the rumpus room, either down over here or having it blowing out into the kitchen. So if there is a register on the floor and that's blowing out heat and because the central heat pump is working, and there's a ductless unit and that's set to, say, 72, because as we age, our metabolism gets slower, and one of the things that determines human comfort is like our metabolism. So what was once comfortable may no longer be comfortable, so he may need to be having a separate unit set to, say, 72 to feel fine in that room. So if there's heat blowing out of this vent, it's not going to change the performance of the ductless unit, as long as the ductless unit is set to a higher temperature than, say, the central thermostat would be. So I think that, say, if there's registers in kind of all of these rooms and having a ductless unit right over here, I think that's a perfectly good design. Your load is 32,000 for heating and 25,000 for cooling. So if I'm thinking about this, let's go over here. And I'm looking at like Mitsubishi's equipment. I'll see that they have multi-zone hyperheat heat pumps, and they have some that are 20,000 BTUs, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48. So with the load being 32, I guess I would take a look at the 30 as well as the 36 and see which one has better performance. So normally what I do is I just highlight the model number, head over to the NEEP database. Sometimes you got to get rid of, you have to get rid of like the end of it. So see over here, it's like -U1. Let me just get rid of that. All right, cool. All right, so we'll want to check out the multi-zone mix of ducted and non-ducted and take a look at how this piece of equipment's performing.
Yeah, so I
So-
looked at this piece of equipment and I was concerned about it because of the min ratings. And also the coefficient or like the efficiency thing. So yeah, I was happy with that because it said 3.93 at 47.
Yeah.
But the min was only 11.4. So I was like, this isn't going to be enough. But is that wrong to think of it that way?
Yeah, the min on here looks really good, in my
Why?
opinion.
Because
So
it's supposed to be for heating, right? So like you don't want them, I guess I got it totally wrong. And so the min, you don't, why does it look good if we need 32 and it says 11?
I would be looking at the max at 5 to see what its total heating output would be. So we're looking for 32. This is 28. So one
Okay.
of the things that I could be doing at this stage to think, is this a big deal or not a big deal? Is I could push the advanced data sizing for heating. And let me go and Westover. Let's find a central mass town. I said that it was 5 degrees and your heating load is 32,000. All right. So say if you did put in this heat pump, I would see that this heat pump system would cover 92% of the load. So it is coming up a little bit short. One, because we're needing 32 and this is 28. So one thing that I'd be thinking about in your case is there's a centrally ducted furnace and AC in the basement. So, and you're thinking about changing out the fossil fuel based air handler to a central heat pump. So one way to make this design work could be that you're putting in a central heat pump system that's very much right sized, a tiny bit short. You could be supplementing this with putting on, say, a 3 kW electric heat kit that would be sitting directly on top of it. And every kilowatt has 3,412 BTUs. So if we put this smallest electric heat coil on top of the system, that could be supplementing it with an additional 10,000 BTUs worth of heating capacity. So the centrally ducted system with a small electric heat kit on top, that should provide all of the heat that they would ever possibly need for this system.
But since I'm doing that mini split in grandpa's room, is it work? Would I still need to do that? Because that would be adding additional.
The total, okay, so here, this is the other approach. So instead of putting it all on a big multi-zone, instead what you could be doing is 2 separate single zones. So you could be putting in a dedicated, the first floor's heat load is, well, hold on one second. The first, you could be putting in, say, a 36,000 BTU ducted single zone piece of equipment for the whole house. So this one piece of equipment would do the whole house. So if grandpa's out of town, you don't have to be running the ductless unit over in that space to be supplementing it. That would probably be my real recommendation over here versus putting in a centrally ducted system that's a little short on sizing and putting in a separate ductless unit to be augmenting that.
Okay.
One thing to know with your just with, say, this existing design, and there's lots of people in Massachusetts that don't feel like they need AC or love AC. It's probably about like 1/3 of the people that I consult with that they like begrudgingly use AC. But do know that with, say, the centrally ducted system down in the basement with a central return located on the first floor, it is very likely that this home on the second floor will still feel warm on a hot summer day with the central AC running.
Because
it's-
it's, I mean, isn't that probably already true with their central AC system?
Yes, correct. That is true, that there's probably no real improvement in the overall comfort of the second floor with this design. And for a good portion of people, it's totally fine. But for other people, they may be interested in heat pumps for their like cooling capacity. One thing that I always remind everyone that I like consult with is, say, if you do have a centrally ducted system down in the basement servicing 2 floors, you don't need to spend $20,000 or $25,000 of, say, putting in brand new ductwork up in the attic with a whole new air handler up there. It may be worth first trying out like changing out, say, a light fixture and putting on a ceiling fan, because that type of a project may cost, say, $300 or $500 per fixture versus tens of thousands of dollars. So there's other ways to kind of stay cool and comfortable that isn't spending tens of thousands of dollars on HVAC equipment. And then the other thing, I wanted to jump back over to Nicole's comment about ripping down the wall between the living room, the TV room, and the kitchen. Do you know that a real product, and I may have highlighted this before, is like the AirShare, where when there is a wall around that you wish wasn't there because you wanted to direct the heat, the heat from the heat pump or the cooling from a heat pump to kind of really like get into an additional room, this is very much a reality of what could be had, and it's very popular in multifamily housings where it's say like a living room and directly behind it's a kitchen, and then there's a bedroom off on the side, and then like a bathroom tucked back there. Like for like senior housing, it's like quite a common design. With those, they're just oftentimes putting in one ductless unit in the living room, and they use this to get the air into the bedroom. It doesn't make things 10 out of 10, but it makes it 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. It depends on the thermal envelope. But it's a good way to not spend thousands of dollars on additional equipment or on a renovation.
Another reason not to take down that wall between the kitchen and the TV room is when the kids are watching The Simpsons or SpongeBob, all that noise pervades the whole space.
I would finish the basement and then make them go to the basement. It's also easy for me to say, let's just rip down this wall because my husband's a structural engineer. So. Oh, so I was going to say, Mike, those are probably really popular in Maine then, where they have the single central system for the whole, kind of the wood stove methodology you had mentioned, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I can say like I don't know if I've like shared this anecdote, but like up right where my finger is pointing over there, like I just used the same exact concept, and now I'm conditioning my entire third floor with the ductless unit that's behind me. It doesn't make it 10 out of 10 there on a very hot summer day when the sun's beating down on the roof, but it does make that entire space that felt, say, uninhabitable on a hot summer day perfectly inhabitable. And then in the winter time, I will assure everyone that warm air really does rise, and it's very easy to be heating second floors or third floors. And with just thinking about that, I guess one additional question is, let's say that you do have a heat load on the second floor of 12,000 BTUs. So, and you want to right size the equipment. So you're just thinking of 2 ductless pieces of equipment. And there's the question of like, which of the three kids gets a ductless unit, because the homeowners, Homer and Marge, they definitely are going to get one piece of equipment, because they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on a brand new state-of-the-art HVAC equipment. Then the next question is, it's like, should it be Maggie's room or Lisa's room or Bart's room? And when I'm thinking about Lisa's room, I'm thinking that Lisa's room has 70-degree radiant floors. It also has a 70-degree radiant wall over here and a 70-degree radiant wall over here, because warm air is rising up the stairwell. There's a unit over here that's blowing directly down the hallway. And you know, Marge and Homer's room is going to be 70 degrees. So Lisa's room is going to be perfectly fine. The only like heat loss is just right in the front. There's no heat loss happening here. There's no heat loss happening here. There's no heat loss happening in the back. And if, say, Mass Save blew 15 inches of insulation up in their attic, there's next to no heat loss going up. And kind of the same thing with like Maggie's room. Well, Maggie's room is smaller. There is more kind of exposure over here. There's like exposure on two sides and not just one side. So Maggie's room, I think, would be a little bit more uncomfortable than, say, Lisa's room. But Bart's room over here, there's a lot of exposure with the two sides. So even though Bart doesn't get good grades, I think that Bart would likely be the prime candidate for which of the three kids also gets a ductless unit.
And we'd ask him to keep his door open.
We would definitely ask him to keep his door open. Yeah, and one thing to know is you shouldn't ever put ductless equipment inside of a bathroom just because of the like humidity and moisture from running showers. It's not good for the electronics on the equipment. But in an ideal world, it would be nice just as they stick it in the hallway. But I don't see a good location for this particular home.
But if they had attic space,
Yep.
instead of adding, like, I guess maybe with 2 units, it might not be as big of a deal. But if you wanted to let them keep their doors closed, because like Homer becomes a firefighter or something like that, and you want all of the rooms to be conditioned, or at least the bedrooms, like paying that extra for the duct work would probably end up being cheap, and having a centralized unit would still probably be cheaper than having that many mini splits.
You got it. Yeah, because 1, 2, 3, 4 ductless units, I'm thinking that's going to be $20,000. And when I'm thinking about putting in a brand new ducted system up in the attic where no duct work is existing, I'm typically thinking that it's a $20,000 to $25,000 project. One thing to know is if I'm on my link drive and I'm looking at the equipment, I'm seeing that there's these slim duct or horizontally ducted systems, and then they also have the multi-position air handler. The multi-position air handler has sizing from like 12 all the way up to say 36,000. And if I'm looking at the slim duct systems, I'm seeing that it's between 9 to 18,000. So the sizing is typically a lot smaller, but the two product lines do somewhat overlap. I have seen on multiple occasions HVAC installers putting in the slim duct systems for $15,000 to $20,000 with brand new duct work. It's all kind of flex. So
how are these installed? Because like, are they over, like, just the shape of it makes me feel like they're like in a wall, but they're like on the ceiling, right?
Yeah, so it says slim duct, but what the slim is, it's just that they're narrow. It's still a big contraption. It's like 4x3, but it's like 8 inches tall.
Mhm.
But this would normally be in the attic,
And they
and
hang
then they
them,
would,
they hang them from the rafters with these screw rods?
yep. Or it's sitting pretty much directly on the floor, the attic floor.
But are the ducts like more of that like tubular kind of thing that like the silver that you see? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The flex duct or
Yeah, the
sheet
flex.
metal? Yeah, so usually when we do see this, we kind of see the unit and then they have a collar on it that will switch it into having, say, like 3 or 4 ports to put flex duct on, and then they just pull the flex duct to each of the, say, different rooms. This doesn't have as much pressure to push air through. So when you are putting in this type of a system, if we're going back over to the Simpsons floor plan, like they're not going to have enough capacity or pressure to add a register into, say, like the bathroom, the walk-in closet, the other walk-in closet centrally located in the hallway.
And
So
it
it really
creates
is just
one
kind of like,
zone. I'm
what was
sorry,
that?
it creates one zone though.
Yep, it would all be the entire, say, second floor would be one zone, and then
Mhm.
you are kind of pulling flex duct typically into multiple rooms. But this would only work if I'm like looking at your heating load. So Jillian, it would be good for you. Joe, your heating load would be too big. And Nicole, it could also work in your case. So there could be an option for a ducted system for low-ish loads for like $15,000 to $20,000, which is the cost of, say, 3 or 4 ductless units, but it would be right sized.
I'm like, so selfishly, I'm very interested in this because I'm trying to figure out my house. And I really am mostly motivated by AC. So I'm the opposite of those people. And it's because it's like, I can't sleep in the summer at this new house because it was so freaking hot last year. And I don't want to live through that again. But so like, the thing that like has me worried is that my bedroom is over a garage, and that has improved a lot since we added a ton of insulation and we got new garage doors and all this other stuff. And we
Yeah.
actually have like thermostats in the garage now. And when it was like so cold outside, it was still like 30 degrees in the garage, which was really positive to me because before it was like the same temperature as outside.
Okay.
But I'm guessing we'll probably continue to use our furnace, our boiler in like the, most cold days. But I worry about, we have this very large space over the garage, and then we have smaller bedrooms everywhere else. And there's not like that flexing that the vents would be doing, right? But like, I've been thinking to myself, we could just close the vent in someone's room if they were too hot or too cold. Cause like we did at our old house where it was forced hot air and AC, and it was like, you just like would close off the register if it was getting to be a problem.
Yeah, so I will say that, say, a best practice with ducted systems is to only duct rooms that share like very similar architectural characteristics.
It adds a cost for me if I do that.
And then the other thing to know as well is, so when I'm thinking about, say, like, and there's like what works and what's energy efficient. Okay, so let's just say that we have, let me just add pluses for a second here. Plus. Okay. So over here, here's say an HVAC design. So there's a register in the bathroom, Maggie's room, Barth's room, Lisa's room, Homer and Marge's room. So right now there is 6 things that are blowing out a block of air. Okay. which is going to say, we're gonna have a big central return that in the middle of the hallway. And this is going to be looking to be sucking in 6 blocks of air because we have 6 blowing out, 6 are going to be coming in. Say when you go and close off a vent, this return doesn't know that a vent was closed off, that the air coming, that the air wasn't successfully blown out of the vent that it was designed for, which causes, say, a block of air to enter into the house, because right now the return would be, say, starved. So it's definitely something that can happen. It can work, it can solve some comfort issues, but do know that when you start kind of closing supply registers, it does cause the house to be under negative pressure, which brings down the overall energy efficiency of how the home is performing.
Boo.
And then and one thing that I always remind everyone too, as we are thinking about projects in your own home, is do know with the Inflation Reduction Act and the federal tax credit, that is something to take advantage of every single year. So say if you do have grand plans to decarbonize, but you're also just trying to get by the summer, is that like potentially for year number 1 is just putting in a ductless unit in the master suite, so you can sleep very well and have a potential delightful home office when you're working from home. And then maybe year number 2, that could be when you start kind of expanding the scope of the project for the rest of the house. With your forced hot water system, is the master bedroom on its own zone, or is it on the same zone that the rest of the second floor is on?
It's on its own zone.
Okay. Yeah, so if you were to say put in your own ductless unit on there, then I would also recommend draining or filling that zone with glycol. Independent of, like, anytime that you're pursuing heat pumps and you have the room over the garage, I would always plan on doing something with that hydronic zone.
And in the phased implementation to take advantage of the $2,000 over several years, you would
Yeah.
scale that first outside unit to accommodate the future inside units?
So with the outdoor units, with all of the multi-zones from all of the mini split manufacturers, it does require them to be have at least 2 pieces of equipment connected to it for it to run. So I think in Jillian's case, potentially, not to say this is the right idea or the wrong idea, but I would be thinking that would just be, say, 1 ductless single zone unit. Potentially to be getting started if the upstairs is unbearable and has plans for decarbonizing over time.
What I need to do is like, yeah, it's so complicated. I mean, the whole thing is so complicated. I feel like I can't even solve it for my house. And after like listening to all of these meetings, I still feel kind of like, I don't know. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I always just think about all of the plumbers 100 years ago that switch people's steam distribution systems over to forced hot water. You know, like there was like other like big lifts as far as like changing the way a home is heat is distributed throughout the home. But so you got, and on the main section of the house, is there 3 bedrooms or 4? Is it 3 or 4 bedrooms? That isn't like the master
3
suite?
bedrooms. Yeah, it's three regular bedrooms and then 1 master bedroom. And one of the bedrooms is like a guest room. So like no one's ever in there really, except for like, my mom every like a few times a year for a week at a time.
Yeah.
But it is attached to a music room, which is like, doesn't have the attic above it. And it's where there's like expensive guitars that my husband plays like stored. So that's like a
Yeah.
special important space that we can't ruin.
Yeah. And with the guitars currently, are they like currently in a like climate controlled space or?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't control for climate in terms of temperature as much as humidity.
Okay. So there's the music room, the guest bedroom. And then there's one additional bedroom.
You got there's two, I have two daughters, each have their room, then there's the guest room, music room,
Okay.
and then there's the master bedroom.
Okay. So the music room is off of the guest room.
Yeah, I could show you the floor plan if it would be helpful.
Yeah, that may be helpful. Actually, just why don't we just take a quick 5-minute break?
Yeah, I'm sorry to
and
make it
then
all
we can
about
go
me.
through this. And also, Joe, I do want to hear what your plan is as well, because you are the one that did have the high-ish load home. So
Right.
I'll be right back. But why don't we take 5 and meet back at 11:30, okay?
Yeah, sorry, Joe. Yes.
Okay, so we'll pivot back and talk about your home in just a moment.
Yeah, let's hear about Joe.
But real quick, so for your home in your example, where there is the centrally ducted furnace and AC in the basement, one zone thermostat centrally located on the interior wall of the first floor with a heat load of 32,000 BTUs per hour, the kind of two different options that I would see that kind of stands out is, say, from the Asian manufacturer like Mitsubishi. I could be going and putting in a 30,000 BTU ducted system. When I go and I look at the performance of that piece of equipment, I see it starts with 34,000 and then it drops down to 32,000. So at 5 degrees, it's right on the heat load. That could be a really good approach. If I did put in, say, like Bosch equipment, it does have a real capacity drop and it would need to be, say, switching over somewhere between 10 to 15 degrees. The advantage with that could be that it's sitting on top of a gas or an oil-fired furnace. So for polar vortexes, you're good to go over there, but it would need to be a dual fuel setup. One nice thing about that could be that with the Bosch equipment or Carrier equipment or Lennox equipment, you could be zoning the first floor and the second floor. Would add a little bit of a premium to the project, but then you'd likely be able to do a much better job of the cooling of the second floor with that. For the cold rumpus room, one of the things is you don't always need to solve the problem with a $5,000 ductless mini split. You could be solving the problem by giving grandpa an electric space heater as well, or you could be going on to, you could be buying like $1,000 do-it-yourself ductless single zone unit from Home Depot or from Lowe's and just having a handyman local contractor put that in for, say, $2,000. So with grandpa's comfort issues, it doesn't need to be like a whole separate wing or phase of the project. So I think those are just some additional like approaches to think about like comfort and goals for the project.
That makes sense.
Joe, did you want to just share before we pivot and talk a little bit more about Jillian's home? And we can also talk about your home as well, but what were you thinking about for The Simpsons?
Well, I took two approaches. One is I would definitely get Mass Save engaged to insulate and create better sealing of this property to reduce the heat load.
Yep.
And if you notice in the picture, they have that nice side yard. And we just had our lead water service pipe replaced by an excavation company that did a beautiful job. So I'm thinking about ground source heat pump for the Simpsons in that yard.
Mhm.
And so I started researching those to try to find information, and I found a really great product, which regrettably is discontinued, the Valiant, if you've ever heard of it. They have a multi-source heat pump, Flexotherm, but some of their products are discontinued, so I wasn't sure how to size that. Also, what is the ratio if you're doing horizontal ground source of the square footage required in the yard to provide the proper amount of ground source heating and cooling for a home that requires quite a bit of treatment?
I used to know what was the rule of thumb with thinking of linear feet of vertical boreholes and horizontal excavation, with thinking about what's how many BTUs you could be expecting from it, but I don't know off the top of my head. With the Valiant multi-source heat pump, I guess what was different about that from like a water furnace or Bosch or I guess some of the other manufacturers of ground source heat pumps?
I don't know. I wasn't.
Okay.
I don't know how to access the standard way of looking at ground source heat pumps. The website apparently only shows us air source heat pumps, which I did research. So in the conventional solution, I would separate the ductwork for the downstairs and upstairs, and for the downstairs put a furnace top heat pump emitter, and go with a carrier multi-zone or single zone ducted unit.
Yep.
But I have quite a load there, so I was trying to find one that could fulfill the requirements, and I had a challenge.
Okay, yeah, so say for the NEAT database, so just say that, and this is not your job as a heat pump consultant, but say with using the NEAT database, one of the things that you can do is you can do the ducting configurations, and you can do a single zone centrally ducted. And then for the brands, you could go and choose carrier.
Right, I did that.
And then what you could be doing as well is, I'm looking at the load. I see that the heat first floor's load is 40,000 BTUs. So I could just see if they have any, you can kind of toggle the min. So if I go to say 30, say if I go to 40, if there's anything that pops up over here, it's going to be like a 5-ton system, or it's going to actually be kind of a, let me just see what this one is. I think that this is,
because I have, I think,
oh, whoops,
maybe Jillian's screen up or some other. There you go.
share screen. Okay. Sorry about that. So so I'm on the NEAT database. I went to ducting configuration, single zone centrally ducted. Then I chose the manufacturer carrier. And then there's this little toggle over here where you can slide the max heating capacity at 5 degrees. The tricky thing with carrier is they do have some equipment that's actually they partnered with the Asian manufacturer Midea. So when I'm looking at, say, this piece of equipment, which it does say that it has, you see the 36 in the model number, so you'd think that has 36,000 BTUs worth of heating capacity, and then you look to see what it actually does with it having like 44,000 BTUs worth of heating capacity. You may be thinking like, this is definitely the right piece of equipment for the job. But this piece of equipment doesn't actually sit on top of a natural gas-fired furnace. This is their kind of mini split style one where it's just connects to a central air handler. So let me go back and to find a carrier unit, a carrier furnace with a heat pump.
Well, excuse me, I have
Single
a
zone.
design question. The
Yep.
element that sits on top of a furnace and attached to existing ductwork is not an emitter?
We would call that an encased coil. So if I go to what Nicole was kind enough to share. So here it is, like the case coil. So this is what like Bosch and Carrier and all of the US manufacturers make.
I'm sorry,
That
you're
can
still on
sit-
the NEAP database as far as
Oh.
sharing.
I should always just share everything. Okay, so say if I'm in the Bosch brochure, when I'm thinking about kind of the components of any like US or European manufacturers equipment, they all sell a cased coil that can sit on top of a natural gas or an oil or propane fired furnace.
And that's the equivalent of the outdoor unit?
The outdoor unit is connected to the case coil
Okay,
versus the outdoor unit connecting to a ductless mini splits or multiple ductless mini splits. With all the US manufacturers, it's like a 1-to-1. So you can never take, say, like a Bosch outdoor unit or Carrier outdoor unit that's manufactured in the US that doesn't just have an Asian manufacturer sticker on it, and connected to like multiple indoor units. So the US European equipment just 1-to-1.
okay, so if I bifurcate the ducting for the downstairs and the upstairs, I need 2 outdoor units. And I guess one of these case things to reside in the basement on the furnace ductwork, and one of those slimline inline ones upstairs.
Yep, that would be, yep. So in your case, you could be mixing and matching because the load upstairs is 100% within the range of what say a centrally ducted heat pump could do. And the downstairs where it is at 40,000 BTUs. If I went over to my link drive and I looked at the capacity of the air handling units, this central heat pumps from say Mitsubishi, it tops off at 42,000 BTUs with your heat load being 40,000 BTUs. And if I went into the submittal of it, PVA, I would see that it actually has 48,000 BTUs worth of heating horsepower, heating capacity. So for your downstairs, there's nothing wrong with putting a Carrier heat pump or a Bosch heat pump on top of a natural gas-fired furnace if someone did want to have resiliency and redundancy, because polar vortexes are real and snowpocalypses are real. Also, it's always worth knowing or highlighting that say when it's 5 degrees outside, the performance of a heat pump is still very efficient, like it's almost 200% efficient, but 200% efficient isn't 400% efficient. It's working really hard at those temperatures. So for cost reasons, they may want to be running a natural gas-fired furnace during extreme cold weather.
And
And
that's
if
okay
we-
that that blows through the coil that's on top?
Yep, you got it. So it's like the same, yeah, that's 100% compatible, made to do it. And just to highlight this again, with the capacity balance point calculator that I've shared multiple times with you, the main sheet on here is the capacity balance point. The next side over is the economic balance point. And if natural gas is $2.20 a therm and electricity is, say, 40 cents per kilowatt hour, let me just grab the performance of this equipment. So at 5 degrees, it probably has the coefficient of performance of 1.91 because it's working really hard there. At 17 degrees, it's probably going to be between those two numbers. So I'll just keep it as 2.47. And at 47 degrees, it's going to be running at its min capacity, so 4.06. I'm just going to jot down those numbers and punch them in over here. 1.91. At 17 degrees, I'll go with the 2.47. And then over here, 4.06. Okay. So I would see that the blue line is heat pumps, the gray line is natural gas. And I would see that in this case with these rates, that the gas system would always be the cheapest way to be heating the home across the temperature spectrum. Say, Jillian, you're in Framingham? Natick, sorry. You guys have a community aggregation program?
Mm-hmm.
And what's your kind of all-in electric rate right now?
Probably 32.
32. Okay. So then at 32 cents, I would still see that natural gas is still kind of cheaper across the board. Say that you did have electric rates are falling. They're about to fall quite a bit. So say that it goes back to like 28 cents per kilowatt hour, then we would see that like they're really pretty much right at the exact same above 45 degrees. So Joe, in your case, with your proposed design, it could be a very comfortable cooling system and it could be a affordable-ish heating system. But do you know that with Mass Save, with the dual fuel, you do need to be running it down to say 30 degrees for that switchover to happen. So even though it's cheaper to run natural gas at say 40 degrees outside, Mass Save still requires you to switch over at 30 degrees if you're taking the partial home heat pump rebate.
And the integrated controls would manage that.
You got it. And the integrated controls sound scary, but it really is just a regular Wi-Fi thermostat in this in your application.
Wow. May I ask about the through the floor venting that you did for your brother-in-law's guest room? Does noise traverse that?
That's a heck of a, it's probably too big of a duct run for noise to be migrating from one side to another. Because I got it 246 Merriam Ave. So say with the air share, with the air share that I highlighted earlier, where it's like through the wall, I think noise would very much be a reality over there. But in my case, it's aerial, bird's eye. In my case, where the hole in the ceiling is right over here. sorry, it's right over here is where the hole in the second floor ceiling is. And then I have the ductwork coming up into this attic space, into this knee wall space, and then the fan is right over here. And then it's blowing all the way down over into the cheek wall of the dormer. So there's not any sound or light or noise that's kind of like going from all from where this is located all the way to the sidewall of the dormer.
All right.
But if it was just a hole in the ceiling to a floor, yeah, if it was just a hole in the ceiling to the floor directly above it, yeah, sound and light and all of that would migrate freely. But there's ducting that I put in. It sounds like a big project, but I got all the materials, including the fan, for like $100, so it wasn't that big.
Okay.
So Joe, I think I like your plan. The only thing that I would also just say for your home and just keeping the project cost in check. So you got the total heating load of 64,000 BTUs and then the total cooling load of 50,000 BTUs. So it does seem like with this project, there's a lot of inefficient glass for those two numbers to be as close as they are for New England. But I would just say that there could be a potential of just putting in a 5-ton centrally located 5-ton heat pump system, in that you are just say zoning the existing ductwork between first floor and second floor, with thinking that the second floor is still probably going to be a little bit warmer than you would want it to be in the summertime, even with it properly zoned. But that could be a slightly more affordable version of the project.
Okay.
All right, Jillian, do you want to chit chat? So you do have screen sharing powers. So I don't know if it'd be helpful for you to pull
Yeah,
up your floor plan or the.
yes, I will pull it up. You'll be scared of all of my tabs I have open, but okay.
Well, you know how I am with tabs, so.
Your tabs make me look like, I don't know. Make me look like your tabs make you look like a saint. So yeah, so here's the floor plan. Can you see it?
Oh, yep.
So yeah, this is the upstairs. This is the bedroom that's over the garage.
Yeah.
And these are the other rooms that these are the other rooms upstairs that we want to heat or cool. Primarily cool is the main motivator. And then but like we also want to be taking steps towards decarbonization, right? So like our biggest thing is if we didn't have a relatively brand new boiler that is everyone who comes to see our home and gives us quotes is always like complimenting us on it because it's like a fancy kind.
Is it a Buderus?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah. The only fancy type of boiler.
Yeah, it's blue. Like people are always like every time everyone's like, oh wow, this is so great. And then like the other primary space that we really want to make sure we're adding cooling to is this family room, which has that's the one with those the wood ceiling thing.
Yeah.
And this is its own zone, the family room with the kitchen. There's a thermostat right here. And then the rest of the downstairs is its own zone. So there's 4 zones total in the house. And what we've been thinking about doing is a mini split here. We don't want to do it over here because there's just like giant, beautiful window. So a mini split here that like you can, I guess, point the air to come out and go this way kind of thing, like go down towards the kitchen. And then go ahead.
Is the foyers in the front of the house, family rooms in the back of the house?
Yeah, the living room is in the front of the house. This is the front, this is the back of the house.
And the basement is unfinished?
Yeah, very much so, and like probably could never be finished.
Okay.
So there's this like storage room, which is underneath the family room.
Yeah.
So ultimately, like all of our outdoor equipment, we're hoping will live right over here. But yeah, and you can see there's this like weird music room upstairs. That's what this is. And it's
What's underneath the music room?
the what is underneath the music room? It's one of it's like I think it's a combination of these two rooms. I have now that you're saying that, I'm a little confused about what is underneath it, but it's set back from the front, so I think it's the office. Yeah, let me look for a second. Yeah, I have to think about that a little bit more. If I Google my house, maybe I could. Sassamon. Silo. Yeah, so it's over the living room in the front of the house.
Okay. Gotcha. Can you go back to the street, with the music room, is it, hold on,
I was gonna pull it up.
how short are the ceilings in that space?
See, it's like it's short. It's it has dormer. Yeah, it has like the walls that like you have side you have space like storage space on the floor, and so it's like
Yeah.
pretty narrow. And
Okay.
you can see it's like way lower than the attic. It's like it
Yeah.
ends at the ceiling.
Okay. And with the music room right now, is the music room is heated with baseboard?
Yeah, it has baseboard. I don't think they have a picture of it in here, probably because it's such a like weird little room.
Right.
But it has baseboard on the exterior wall.
Okay. Okay. And 3 zones?
4 zones total. So
4
one for the
zones.
master, one for
Yeah.
the rest of the upstairs, one for the family room, kitchen,
Yeah.
and then one for the rest of the downstairs.
Okay. So
And my I can pull up my quote or the exchange I've been having with this guy from Obi. So hold on. So I asked about our what he was telling me was essentially he says I performed the manual J calculation for your home, which I don't really know if this is a true manual J. And so this is what he's saying the loads are, the heating and cooling loads.
scroll down a little bit. A little further. Yep, keep going. Okay. Okay, so one thing that instantly, Han, go back
Yeah.
up real quick. Yeah, so one of the things that's instantly slightly curious is say that with ceilings, they have 2,000 square feet of ceilings. We'll say 1,300 square feet of floors, but you're only
Yeah.
really modeling the things to the unconditioned space or outside of the thermal envelope. So that's sticks out a bit to me to have such a disparity between floors and ceilings. Like say if you have 500 square foot of floor, you usually have 500 square foot of ceiling.
Yeah.
For the wall square footage, nothing instantly jumps out as being way too high or way too low.
It's a little odd to me that with the floors, it's saying 1,300 square feet because I do have, our house is like 2,800 square feet.
With 2 stories.
Yeah. So is this, so that's 2 floors, each floor is 1,300 is how they're trying to say it?
Say for the second, your total floor area should be the first floor going down to the basement, and it should be the room over the garage. So that should be your total floor area square footage. And
Oh, I
your
see.
total ceiling square footage would be it'd be kind of a pain in the neck to calculate this, but it'd be the sections of the first floor that are going up into the eaves of the office plus the rest of the second floor. That would be your total ceiling square footage. Which that number seems higher than I would imagine it to be based off of the square footage of the home.
Right.
And then the other thing, if you keep scrolling down, it does have over here, it will have how they modeled the home. So they have R11 in your walls. So that would be like 3-something-ish inches of insulation. So they're indicating that the walls are insulated.
Yeah. I mean, we did do the Mass Save program and did everything they told us to, including some more because Mass Save, like, I don't know, didn't realize we had a skylight, which like wasn't new. But
Yeah, so walls look good. Keep scrolling down. It could be a little bit better, but it also could be a little bit worse. All right, now with windows, this is actually sticking out to me. So they have the windows as just having a U factor of 0.57, which is somewhere between, say, single pane in storms and generic double pane windows. So if your windows,
a good way to tell what your windows are when you like you weren't the one to buy the windows for your home.
Yeah, not to be like wicked nerdy. Hold on, maybe I've already pulled off this label, but hold on, let's see what happens here. Yeah, hold on, I already pulled that one off.
So usually there's one up there.
There's a sticker sometimes when you open up the top sash, and the sticker would be from the net. If you like pull down the top sash, there's sometimes a sticker from the National Fenestration Rating Council, where you can then go into their database and see the efficiency of the windows.
Oh, that's a good idea. Because like I feel like my system, they're designing it for something that's maybe bigger than I need, is something I'm a little concerned about. I don't know.
Yeah,
but this is the only company who's giving me anything.
Yeah, I would just have them potentially hone it in. So if you do have double pane windows, and most of your windows are double pane.
They're all new. I think that, I mean, newish. I think that at least they're less than 20 years old for sure. I have to, I think even younger than that, because they did this major renovation in 2000. But then I think they did the windows in between that and now. I just don't know when. Yeah.
So I would probably be thinking that they're closer to U factor of 0.35 or 0.4 if they are like modernish replacement windows that may or may not be Energy Star rated. But the type of windows that they have right now, they just have it as just a clear pane of glass, no low E coating, no insulation, which is probably not an accurate reflection of your type of windows. So that would also, if I'm looking at that should be honed in. For the attic, they have pretty much what R33 to R35, so that would be like 11-ish, 10 to 12 inches of insulation up in the attic.
Is that what like would usually be added by Mass Save? Now they just added like all that like white, like,
Cellulose.
yeah, it just looks
Insulate.
like white fluffy stuff everywhere.
Yeah. So with Mass Save, if they 2 years ago they switched it up to R49, which is actually closer to like 15 inches of insulation. But
Mhm.
I'm not super concerned about this, because if we were to scroll way back up and look at the chart and see how much heat is leaving through the attic, the pie chart, I think, go up a tiny bit more. Yeah, if we look under the ceilings, it's not a fight worth having, because they already modeled the attic as being very well insulated, so it's a very small sliver. So normally when I'm looking at like this chart, I'm normally like, all right, where are values that seem too high? And those are the ones that if reasonable, I'd be trying to bring down. So with infiltration, I haven't run a blower door test on your home. When you
I have
Mass,
one because I just did Mass Save. So I know what
Yes.
my infiltration is, or what my blower door test would be.
Yeah, so they have it modeled as 13,620. If you email me over a picture of your COC that has the blower door test out number, I can let you know if that number is higher or lower than it should be. But it
Mhm.
seems like the big things to be honing in for your project would be windows, would be the windows, and double checking the above grade wall square footage. And can you go up? Oh no, total 69,000. Yeah. And then also with the floors, that also probably needs to get buttoned up too. You want to scroll way down on the report?
Keep going.
Yeah, so for the second floor, so they have the second floor's total heat load as being 33. And I go up a page to the first floor. And then over here, they have the first floor's heat load being 36. And just my feeling of like, as a building scientist, then I know that like you do have bigger square footage upstairs with the room over the garage. It still feels a little slightly unbalanced with the first floor likely being a bit first floor is probably fine. Second floor is where I'd probably be trying to hone the numbers in.
Yeah.
Jillian,
Yes.
your contractor did all this work as part of their proposal at no cost to you?
Only one has done this. I've asked all of them to try to do this, and none of them have, except for Obi, which is they're based in Framingham.
Thank you.
And scroll up a little bit more. I just want to see what they have modeled for the floors.
This.
And yeah, keep going up a little bit more. Leaky. Okay, they statused your house as average, which I think is good. Oh, this is actually interesting. So right now you don't have any ductwork, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so for some reason they added in 6,000 BTUs worth of duct losses. So that's another thing that they're now half of a ton greater. You have a half of a ton greater load than you would think.
Because they have no ducts, so they're including duct losses when there are no ducts.
That's what this is showing, correct?
Where is it showing that? In the
Uh,
leakage area or no?
Under ducts, so top of the page that
Oh,
you're
I
on.
see. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then for your floors, right now they have they're modeling all of your floors as it's uninsulated floors that are going down into a unconditioned basement. And you do have at least 2 unique floor types. So you have one going into kind of a vented, sorry, you have one that's going into a garage with insulation on it. And then for your main part of the house, right now there's no, I assume that when you're looking up in your basement ceiling, there's no insulation right there at,
Yeah,
okay. So yeah, so one thing to know is with Mass Save, if you do switch to whole home heat pumps, you can get Mass Save to insulate the basement ceiling, which is something that I'd recommend doing to be potentially bringing down the heat load. Because once you're not running your fancy Buderus boiler, there's going to be a lot less jacket losses, cycling losses, pipes radiating out, so it will be cooler down there. So I would recommend insulating the ceiling to slow down the conductive and radiant heat transfer from your first floor down into your basement. But that number
one
could
part of
get-
my basement does have insulation now that I think about it in the ceiling. It's that like part that's under the family room in the back.
Okay.
Like it has
that-
pink insulation all over it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd recommend likely continuing it on into the rest of the basement ceiling as well. It's not a need to do, but it could be, say, shaving off.
But you have to
Like-
wait until you do the whole home heat pump or the whole home rebate to get to qualify for that.
No, you're already good for pushing ahead with the whole home heat pump rebate if Mass Save is already like signed off and said that like you executed everything that they recommended. I would just reach back out to the contractor that you used to have the original audit and say, I'm switching over to heat pumps. I'd like my basement ceiling insulated because I'm never planning on running my boiler ever again. But that's only if you were to be pursuing the whole home heat pumps.
Right. So once I make the full switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
How
guess
does that
like,
work?
oh, go
I'm sorry,
ahead.
Jillian, how does that
No.
work if you're doing the phase thing over a number of years?
What do you mean by that question, Joe?
If you're committing to a whole home heat pump solution, and then will qualify for, as you mentioned, the basement floor insulation, basement ceiling insulation, but you want to phase this over a number of years for that $2,000 limitation, how does all that play doing whole home but on a phased basis?
Yeah, so on the Mass Save side, it would be that you're claiming the partial home rebate over the course of multiple years, and then every year you'd be doing the 30% of the federal, 30% of the project cost up to $2,000 for the federal tax credit. With Mass Save, they don't want to be insulating basement ceilings when there is a fossil fuel-based system that's being the primary source of heat for the home. So you wouldn't be able to say like tackle getting the basement ceiling insulated until you kind of have the whole project, the whole heat pump project wrapped without a exception. But there are lots of exceptions that are granted in the Mass Save program for weatherization work. But
Thank you.
Jillian, I think with looking at the floor plan and just thinking about, say, like ductless for the upstairs,
Yeah.
if you did put one ductless unit in the primary bedroom and you did put one ductless and say with like floor mounted units, the like one and like I would think that one ductless unit in the primary bedroom that would be blowing down the hallway, you know, hitting that last bedroom. In the music room, there could be another ductless unit over there that could be blowing through the guest bedroom, also into the hallway. Yeah, and that does seem like it would be like you're removing the heat and humidity on one side, you're removing heat and humidity on the other side. Like I think that as far as cooling goes, that's all that you would likely be needing. With the bedrooms, I do think that the right way to be tackling the bedrooms for heating likely would be like a slim duct system up in the attic dropping down. The tricky thing about it is because the music room is on a different roof plane, you would need to be doing something in either of these two bedrooms where you'd be losing closet space or needing to build a chase to be able to be ducting that room as well. Because this has the a separate roof plane. So to be able to get a duct into the music room, it would need to be kind of dropping down. It'd need to be coming in from one of these two bedrooms.
Right.
So.
But if I wasn't worried about that room for cooling, really, like if I didn't care about that room until the future where I don't want to have fossil fuels, then doesn't matter so much. If it has a door into the that bedroom on the corner, right?
Mhm.
And so I could just have that room vented from a central system. And then at some point I could just remove the hot water baseboard system from, or like at that point, I guess I'll just not have a hot water baseboard system, right? Like for heat.
Yeah, so with thinking, so one of the things to know is that is a smallish room, like
Yeah.
the total, so it's a very easy room to be heating. The tricky thing about it is just thinking about like on the cooling side. And I do think that if there was, say, like a supply register that was like put in right over here, you know, like right in the doorway. Sorry, you can't see where my mouse
No,
is.
it's okay,
Right in
sorry.
the doorway between the guest bedroom and that room. I
Mhm.
think that will be perfectly fine, as long as that door stays open and that mass save got into the eaves of that room and button them up. Did
Yeah, they
put
did do that.
access-
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so then I think that having, say, a slim duct system on the main body of the second floor with a ductless unit in the master bedroom would probably be a pretty elegant way of heating and cooling the second floor. I would strongly suggest that the hydronic zones, the two zones up there, that either gets disconnected from the boiler or changed over to glycol, because you kind of have like two spaces with the plumbing on the exterior wall of the music room. It's like you just don't know like where that's running to and from, and it's not like being like directly conditioned. So I do think that I would have a slightly higher priority for this space with making sure that you're having a plan for the hydronic zones in both of those rooms.
Is the glycol thing like a big deal to add?
It's not a huge deal, but some plumbers really don't like to do it. So speak to Obi about it. The reasons that they don't like to do it is that with all of the valves and pumps, air separators, all of those things are happier if water is running through them and not glycol. So it does kind of gum things up in a part that was supposed to last, say, 20 years instead last 17 years. So they're not jumping to do it. But I would just have a little bit of concern for this project with just like leaving everything as is and just hoping that it will all be okay.
Okay, so here's a totally different plan. What if kind of building off what you said, what if we have these like roll around air conditioning units.
Mhm.
My children seem to be fine this summer. Like you said, I love them dearly, but they didn't complain as much as I did about the heat, right?
Yeah.
and I want to do this in a phased approach. What if we just get a mini split in the primary bedroom, put it, like you said, facing towards the hallway, which would mean it would like be going like over our bed, which I don't know if that would be like problematic, but, and then do one in the family room, which like leads into the kitchen, and have it be integrated controls. So I don't have to worry about those. I hope I wouldn't have to worry about the glycol situation, because I could have it at a temperature where it's not as urgent.
Yeah. I think that would be a really good setup as a phase one for the project, because each of the ductless units would just be covering on heating mode their hydronic counterpart as far as the zone goes. So I think that would be a really good setup. This is all cabinets over here. Sorry,
I
you
can't
can't
see
see
where
where
you're
I'm. Yeah.
So this is open, the family room and the kitchen, it's open. So it's like
Yeah.
a counter there. And then there's just like that black thing is just like a column.
Okay. Yeah, my only comment is I would encourage you to explore a floor mounted unit that could be mounted along the glass of the back side of the home where it is facing down and blowing into the kitchen. Versus sticking.
Well, so there's a sectional couch here, like
Okay.
so, and you know, along this wall is also the baseboard. So there's not a lot of room for a floor mounted unit. Or like, except as a floor mounted unit, actually, well, this seems stupid. So it would be on the floor.
There's the ones from Mitsubishi don't actually sit on the floor. The ones from every other manufacturers do sit on the floor.
Why would you recommend a floor mounted unit?
So the advantages with the floor mounted unit is that you can drop the line set down into the basement and then like directly out the side of the house. So it does sometimes make like running the line sets a little bit cleaner. I'm also would be happy with a wall mounted unit, but in an ideal world, it would be better for that unit to be blowing down into the kitchen directly versus like blowing from one wall of the family room onto the next wall of the family room. So just it has like a bigger volume of air that it could be mixing with if it's blowing top to down versus right to left.
Okay, so because it's like this is the setup, right? So it's like a step down into the family room,
Yeah.
and you're still thinking that like over here, it would be best to have a floor mounted unit,
or wall mounted, yeah.
Yeah, a wall mounted unit, but you would really want it here. You don't want it over here.
I think that it would be closer to say 10 out of 10 blowing out towards the kitchen versus I would say that the kitchen may be 8 out of 10 if it's in the family room and just blowing, you know, where your mouse is hovering from that side over that side. Totally get
Like
that.
you can't point it, right? Like, is that like they have told me like the guy from Air, which is that company?
The one with the IR, the one with the infrared locator where the vans move.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like let's see here. So like I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
But like it really like, yes, it's like angling things to blow that way. But like in reality, like I don't think that it like with adjusting the louvers over here, whether it's blowing down or whether it's kind of blowing like straight across, like I think that's a lot more effective than just kind of how the left and right horizontal veins go. Like I don't know, it's like a
Yeah.
15-degree difference. Like, I still think that it's blowing. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen any like airflow studies of like adjusting the vanes, but it's not
Right.
it's pushing it in the right direction, but I don't think that it's doing that much that's super meaningful. Do you not want it above your heads on the couch just for like noise reasons or cold air reasons, or?
It's more like vanity or like aesthetics with the window, which is like a centerpiece of the room. And like
Yeah.
just like I think I don't know if it would even I don't really want it over the window. Like, I kind of just want it over here. Which is just me being like that annoying homeowner.
Well, the thing is, you do need, like, aesthetics are real, interior design's real, architecture's real. And it's not all just about efficiency and effectiveness. But
like, so my question with this, like, and I'm sorry, I'm using so much of your time. So if you have to go, like, please just say goodbye and I'll stop. But my last question is, because this was confusing to me. So like, if this is really like a phased approach for me, right? Like, because I'm a sustainability director. I want to like get off of fossil fuels. Like, I was sad when I found out that we had a nice heating system. So if I do those two things, which are like, I feel like critical to my survival this summer, and not like, you know, murdering my family because it's just everyone's so grumpy. Like, I can take advantage of the integrated controls thing with the mass save rebate and the federal rebate, which my understanding is it's like $200 every year for 10 years is how it works, instead of like $2,000 all at once for the federal rebate. Or
federal is you can claim the $2,000 federal tax credit every year between now and 2035.
Okay, but I can claim all $2,000 in 1 year.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
And you can keep doing that.
Okay, but I can keep doing that when I add new things.
Yes.
Right. So, if by doing this, like these two systems, I'm not really precluding myself from anything in the future that I would want, because my next move would be the central bedroom thing, and then maybe something for this other zone as like as part of the second phase. But like, I guess, what does that mean for like my outdoor unit? Is like, I guess I would just be getting a second outdoor unit at that point.
Yes, or say 2 separate single zones.
Okay.
So if I think they need to hone in the heat load a bit more, but I could imagine that, say, on the second floor, they're putting in like a 12,000 BTU unit, ductless unit. On the first floor, maybe an 18,000-ish BTU unit. At the same time, if the second floor was like an 18, and then it was really designed to be doing kind of the vast majority of the second floor's cooling load, I don't think that would be a wrong design. If you did want to like blow past what the cooling load is of just like the master bedroom suite and really try to have a meaningful impact on the rest of the second floor and minimize the chances of needing to pull out the portable air conditioning units, then I would recommend a wireless thermostat for the system in the master bedroom and put it in the second floor hallway if you are cool with leaving the door open throughout the day. And do know that with cooling, it really is throughout the day. And as long as you like have that unit running, when the sun's out, that's where all the heat in the summertime comes from. So it will do probably a pretty darn effective job through everything in the second floor except for the music room. I feel like that's very much disconnected from
Yeah.
any ability of like line of sight. I'll definitely remove some of the humidity from that space, but I'll definitely, like, if that room was feeling hot, it'd still feel hot.
Is there a risk of like my room being super uncomfortable because it's like overcooling the rest, like that room to get to the rest of the house?
Yeah, so you may, if you say set the, I think it depends on what you set the central thermostat to. So I
Mhm.
think if you set the central thermostat to say 75 degrees or 73 degrees, there's a chance that that room may be, say, 70 degrees, but say 70 degrees seems pretty comfortable for me,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
because
true.
like, say, yeah, it's like blankets are, I guess in the reverse of this, it's like blankets are real. Yeah, in the, but yeah, it'd just be then like if say 70 degrees is too cool with trying to get the hallway set at 75 degrees, then it's like, all right, set the hallway to 77 degrees or 78 degrees. So I do think that it would be yeah, it'll be pretty easy, I think, to kind of configure. And then the other thing, I guess, that I just keep in mind too, if you are building a good relationship with Obi, is with the, say, and they are like a
They use all of
Mitsubishi.
them, but like I was gonna go for Mitsubishi because I almost
Okay.
hear the best things about Mitsubishi. Yeah.
Yeah, so the wireless control and the wireless thermostat is relatively easy for them to be. Oh, well, if you are pursuing the integrated controls, they're already going to need to be they're likely already going to be planning on putting in the wireless control for the unit to have it integrated with the thermostat. So, yeah, so I think that'll be something that you'll just end up playing around with. But do know with the wireless thermostat, so it does communicate with the integrated control. I don't 100% know what, if they are planning on putting in a wired thermostat or a wireless thermostat, or this isn't cross, but if it is the wireless thermostat, do know that it is movable.
Right.
So you could even be trying it in your, leaving it on the wall over here, or you could be trying moving it into the hallway and just seeing what feels the most comfortable.
And with the massive rebate, like would I still qualify for like a rebate like when I did phase 2?
Yeah, so you're able to claim the partial home rebate multiple times until you cap out at $10,000, which
Oh, okay.
if they did the heat load correctly, you likely wouldn't be bumping into that with this project.
Cool. All right. Good. Well, I feel like I have a decent plan. We'll see how it goes, but thank you so much. This was our last class, right?
Yeah, this is it, but do know that you're still welcome to like schedule office hours and but I don't have any more lectures that pertaining to this training.
Well, it was super valuable. I feel
Yeah.
like I still have so much to learn, but I learned a lot.
Right, that's my feeling as well. Do you mind if I share my floor plan briefly?
Yeah, certainly, Joe.
Where is it? So this is our house. We're gonna, on the left side, the kitchen and dining room, we're gonna open that up into an open archway.
Yeah.
Really asking about on the right side of the house, the primary bedroom and the secondary bedroom, which we use as a den. We're gonna air condition and heat with heat pumps. The upstairs bedrooms reside directly over those bedrooms, and their upstairs is going to be for occasional use when we have guests.
Yep.
So I'm thinking of putting in that air blower ductwork that you use. And what I would do is from the front bedroom, duct through a crawl space to the rear, and from the rear primary bedroom, duct it to the front so that I have a horizontal run to eliminate the transmission of noise and light. Do you think that's a plan?
So where would you be sticking the heat pump piece of equipment?
In the primary bedroom and in that front bedroom on the main floor.
Yep.
And then upstairs, not have heat pumps so much as that blown, that forced air ductwork that you used for your third floor,
Okay.
but going horizontally front to back and back to front.
Okay. And with the house, was all of this with the first floor and second floor, all of this is original to it?
No, the second floor is a finished attic and they did insulate it.
Okay. And with the sunroom, is the sunroom currently unheated?
The sunroom has a small heat pump in it for itself only, floor mounted.
Okay.
So it's 4-season.
So you're thinking a ductless unit in the kitchen blowing down into the dining room,
Probably the other direction.
the dining room blowing up into the kitchen.
Yeah, but we don't really have a wall for that, except the one abutting the stairs down to the basement.
Okay.
It would blow in that direction, and I was paying particular attention to the directionality conversation you had with Jillian.
Yeah. Yeah. In some ways, I do feel like, so with kitchens, sometimes if it's not an eat-in kitchen, when you're in a kitchen, you're typically like moving around and things like that. So it's sometimes not the end of the world where it is a couple degrees cooler in that space. But I think in an ideal world, like I would prefer to see like the ductless mini split in the primary bedroom having the ability to blow out through the doorway into the kitchen as well.
So the placement of that, there are windows there, so we really,
Yeah, and it wouldn't fit underneath the windows with the height of the windows in your home.
correct.
Okay. Okay. So one in the dining room that would need to just be blowing out that way. And then in the primary bedroom, you would have one in the primary bedroom, and anything in the secondary bedroom on
Yes,
the
I was
first
thinking,
floor?
I think it would have one there as well.
Okay. So walk-in closet. And with the living room, are you hoping that that would just be, say, conditioned from the one that's in the dining room?
Yes.
I guess next to the walk-in closet, is there any reason why you, other than potentially a door smashing against it, is there any reason why you wouldn't have, say, a ductless unit in the foyer blowing out into the living room?
No reason, although I'm not sure how effective that would be for the rest of that space.
In some ways, I feel like if it was in the foyer blowing out into the living room, then with the bedroom over here, it's like it would now have, say, like 70-degree radiant walls, and then the unit in the dining room being conditioned as well would certainly help. I guess the other general thought that I have with like say like if you are up to like 1, 2, 3 units for the first floor, you are kind of reaching kind of the territory where it may make sense to just be putting in a ducted system as well. But yeah, I will say that these like 12 by 12-ish rooms, when like, or 13 by 10 or 13 by 14 rooms, these are this is the type of a home where typically like ductless is trickier.
Right, because 6,000 is the minimum.
You got it. And with
Yeah.
just thinking of like 12 by 12, 144, yeah, like some of these loads are going to be 2,000 or 3,000 2,000 or 3,000 BTUs. So yeah, it's tricky with mass save and the whole building incentive. One thing to know about is like you would, to be able to claim the $10,000 rebate, you will need to stick some piece of equipment upstairs. And with the some piece of equipment, once again, it's tricky to imagine for your home because I can't say with knowing about the height of the windows, you can't have like one unit blowing through one doorway into the other.
Right.
So I do think for the second floor, there's a walk-in closet, the stairs. It would need, I'd have to assume that in the hallway area, it would just need to be a ductless unit over there if you did want to be pursuing the $10,000 mass save rebate, and then do some sort of either active or passive pass-through vents into the 2 bedrooms, or alternatively, it would be like a slim ductish
Yeah.
system up in the attic dropping down.
Okay, that's very helpful. I think we'll pursue this later in maybe office hours. And I need to hop, but this has been just a fantastic series of lectures. And as Jillian said, we now know what we don't know.
So much.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going I'm going to leave this Zoom session, but I'm not going anywhere. But I'm more than happy to support either of you and any of your heat pump endeavors for now into the future. But yeah, thanks for being great sports, being here on time, and just trying to make the most out of the training.
Sure. Thank you. Good luck, Jillian.
Thanks. You too. Bye, Mike.
Okay,
I'll see you
bye-bye.
around.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye all.